A lot of people come to Sweden and start with SFI, and it makes sense. You learn Swedish, you follow the system, and you expect that eventually this will lead to a job. But for many people, that's not what actually happens. You study, you progress, but when it comes to real life, and especially work, something still doesn't quite work. And just to be clear, SFI is very useful. It gives you structure, it builds a foundation, and it also helps you understand parts of the Swedish society and culture. But it only solves part of the situation, because what SFI mostly gives you is knowledge about the language and some context around how society works. But what you actually need is the ability to use it in real conversations, in real situations, in real time. And that's a different skill. For example, at work, it's not just about correct sentences. It's about how you speak in meetings, how you respond, and how you interact with people. And that's something you don't really practice in SFI. So what often happens is, you spend months learning Swedish, but when it comes to use it, it still feels difficult. You understand quite a lot, but speaking, participating, feels like a different level. So the shift for me was this: not seeing SFI as the part, but as just one part of it. Not something you finish first and then start using Swedish, but something you do while you're already using it. And what really made the difference for me was this: creating situations where Swedish is the default. Not everywhere, but in a few specific parts of your day. For example, in conversations, people often switch to English as soon as things become a bit unclear. What helped me was not following that switch. If someone moves to English, I just continue in Swedish, and quite often the conversation actually comes back to Swedish again. So instead of adapting immediately, you gently hold the language where you want it to be. Another example, choosing specific Swedish-only moments. It could be ordering coffee, calling customer service, or small talk at work. Situations where you simply don't switch. You don't need everything in Swedish. Just a few situations where English is not the default. One very practical thing you can do is calling. If you call instead of writing, you don't have time to think. You just speak. And that's where a lot of progress happens. And this can also be something you do on your own. For example, just talking to yourself in Swedish for 10 to 20 minutes a day. Explaining what you're doing. Thinking out loud. Practicing how you will say things. So you don't always depend on other people to practice. Another thing that helps a lot is not trying to build sentences from scratch, but just reusing what you hear. Simple phrases like "jag tänker", "det låter bra", "vi kan ta det senare". You hear them, you reuse them, and slowly they become natural. And if you're working, the most useful Swedish is not general Swedish, it's the Swedish of your job. What do you need in meetings, in updates, in conversations with colleagues? And that's what actually moves you forward. And this connects quite closely to something I talked about before, the English bubble. Because if you stay in SFI, or mostly in English environments, you don't really break out of it. And if you look at all the small practical things that I mentioned you can do, they have one thing in common. They all push you to use the language before you feel fully ready. And that's really where speaking starts to improve. So even though SFI gives you a very useful foundation, it's not the full solution on its own. When you combine it with real usage in daily life, that's when things really start to move. And if you're in that situation and not sure what to focus on next, I've opened a few free one-to-one sessions. You can find the link in the description. Language doesn't start working when you finish learning it. It starts working when you start using it.